Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to do something super useful. We're going to tear apart a company's income statement, and forget the boring textbook stuff. We are using the real, actual 2022 numbers from automaker Honda to see how their business really did and, where all the money actually went.
I mean, just think about it for a second. A company like Honda sells thousands and thousands of cars, right? The Civics, the Cities, they're bringing in a massive amount of cash. But after they've paid for all the steel, the salaries, the flashy TV ads, how much of that money is actually left over as pure profit? Well, that is the exact question we're going to answer today.
And the tool we're going to use to figure this out is the income statement, or what you'll often hear called the P&L. Honestly, it tells a pretty simple story. It's got two main parts. You've got revenue, which is all the money coming in, and you've got expenses, all the money going out. The difference? That's your profit, or your loss.
Okay, so let's jump right into Honda's 2022 statement. We're going to start at the very, very top with the biggest, most impressive number of them all, their total sales. And wow, what a number to start with. Honda's total sales revenue was a staggering 108 Arab Pakistani rupees. Now, if you're not familiar, 1 Arab is a billion. So we're talking about 108 times billion rupees. And this isn't just from selling new cars. This number includes all the spare parts and the servicing too. It's the whole shebang. But of course, you can't just pocket all that cash. To build all those cars, Honda had to pay for a ton of stuff. Raw materials, running the factories, paying the workers. This is our first huge expense, and it's called the cost of sales.
So after you subtract the cost of actually making the cars, the gross profit comes out to 57 crore rupees. Now, a crore is 10 million. So did you see that drop? We went from 108 billion in sales all the way down to about 570 million in gross profit. It's a huge drop, and believe me, we are far from finished.
Right, so that gross profit number, that only covers the cost of making the product. It doesn't even touch the cost of just running the company every single day. So next up, we have to subtract all the operating expenses. And these costs are no joke. Distribution and marketing cost them 113 crore. That's all their advertising and supporting their network of car dealers. And on top of that, another 106 crore for administrative costs. Things like salaries for the executives and paying rent on their offices.
Okay, now this next part, this is where reading an income statement gets really, really interesting. We're about to look at the money that comes in and goes out that is not directly tied to Honda's main business of building and selling cars.
And you know what? There's some really good news for Honda here. They brought in 200 crore in what's called other income. This is money from things like the interest they earned on cash sitting in the bank, or maybe returns from investments they made. It's a really nice extra boost to their profits. But then we see this really vague line item, other expenses for 98 crore rupees. Just looking at this, it's a total mystery. What on earth is hiding inside that number? So how do we figure this out? Well, this is a little pro tip for reading financial reports. They always leave clues. Vague items like this one will always reference a note in the back of the full report. And here, it's telling us, go check out note 32 if you want to know what's going on. And this is exactly why you have to dig into the notes. That 98 crore is made up of a bunch of different things. Worker welfare funds, losses from foreign currency swings, and something called freight loss. The easiest way to think about freight loss is, imagine one of those big trailers carrying brand new cars gets into an accident. If those cars get damaged, that's a loss for Honda. It all adds up. We are getting so close to the pre-tax profit line. The last big deduction here is finance costs, which came out to 115 crore. This is basically the interest payments on any loans the company has, plus all the other fees and charges from the banks. All right, the moment of truth is almost here. We've gone from that massive sales number, we've subtracted the cost to build the cars, the cost to run the business, all those other weird expenses, and we're getting super close to the final answer. So after all of those deductions, Honda's profit before tax was 402 crore rupees. And as you can see right here on the chart, that is a really strong result. It's a huge jump up from the 278 crore they made the year before. But as we all know too well, there's one more group that always gets its cut, the government. The last major expense we have to pull out of this profit is the income taxes. And for Honda, that was 174 crore rupees for the year. So after the huge sales number, the cost of parts and labor, the marketing budget, those mysterious other expenses, and finally the tax bill, what was the actual final take-home profit for Honda in 2022?
250 crore rupees.
There it is.
That is the final net profit. This is that famous bottom line that everybody talks about when they ask if a company actually made any money.
Okay, so 250 crore is great for the company. But what does that mean for you? For an individual investor, somebody who maybe just owns a handful of shares? How do we make that giant number mean something on a personal level? Well, that is where a super important metric called earnings per share, or EPS, comes in. And the math here is actually really simple, but it's so powerful. You just take that total net profit we just found, and you divide it by the total number of company shares out there in the world.
For Honda, you take the 250 crore in profit divided by the 14 crore shares, and that gives us an EPS of 17.5 rupees. So what does that mean? It's simple. For every single share of Honda stock, the company earned 17.5 rupees in profit. It just makes that massive number much more relatable.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second and put this all together. We've taken a journey from the very top of the income statement all the way down to the very bottom. So what's the final verdict? How did Honda do this year?
When you look at the key numbers, the story is crystal clear. Even with all those immense costs, the company managed to turn 108 Araban sales into a very healthy 250 crore in net profit, and that showed really strong growth over the year before. This tells us that even with all the economic challenges still lingering, 2022 was a remarkably successful year for Honda. So I'll leave you with this question. When you see a company perform this well in a tough environment, what does that tell you about its real strength and resilience?